Welcome to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
We messed up. Big time. See, this is the Golden Record, a shiny disc filled with information about the human race. Naturally, we shot it into space with the intent for aliens to find it. But was this a bad idea? See, the Golden Record includes some pretty wholesome information about humans. There's pictures of us eating, drinking, pictures of technology we've created, and there's even a photo of an astronaut in space. But here's where it gets creepy. We've also included exact diagrams of our very biology, pretty much teaching aliens precisely how to dismantle us. What's even crazier is we've given aliens details on how to get to Earth, a literal map. So not only have we told aliens exactly what our weaknesses are, we've also told them how to come and find us. Now sure, I get it, the whole thing is really poetic and hopeful. We come in peace and all that. But what if aliens are like us? See, we aren't exactly the most peaceful species. To me, this disc is the cosmic equivalent of posting your address on the internet, giving out your social security number, and then showing a diagram on exactly how easily your legs can break. Not only are we now dead, but it's also entirely our fault.
I'm gonna have to side with that guy. With nearly every depiction that we've seen of aliens in movies and books and stuff, they're almost always depicted as being hostile. Why in the world would we do something like this? Anyone who's out this far from their home planet is likely not out here just exploring for fun. They're likely looking for resources or something. Sending out a calling card that says, "Don't miss us when you pass through," just sounds kind of ignorant. I may be a little paranoid, but I feel like we probably should have put something on there about our poisonous atmosphere and our acidic oceans that burn up anything that touches them. At least give a little misdirection so we all have a fighting chance when the aliens invade.
Real ID is not at all what they're telling us. Let's get into it. For a little background context, the Real ID Act was signed into law way back in 2005 when, after 9/11, they said we needed stricter standards on state-issued driver licenses and ID cards, to keep us safe from terrorists.
It's amazing what President Trump has already done by closing down the border, making sure we're enforcing our federal laws, doing all we can to identify those that are in this country that don't belong here, that are committing crimes, and we're continuing to enact policies that will give us the chance to do that. You've had quite a bit of discussion on Real ID and its implementation here in the country, and the reason that Real ID is being enforced is because it's a federal law. Joe Biden kicked the can to May 7th, and this Real ID is going to just empower the states to make sure we're checking people's residences. Their current legal status will be verified. We're going to make sure that people who are getting social security numbers in this country aren't voting in states. The states have the power and the information to ensure election integrity. And here at the federal level, that information is not going to be any biometric information. It'll just allow people to get an ID that they should be on our planes. They should be people that are United States residencies, and that legal status will be checked. So it'll allow us to get more information to states so that they're making sure that they're protecting their election laws as well.
Yes, the government tells us, in this case it's Kristi Noem, that we need these Real IDs to know who's flying on our planes and who's voting in our elections. But that, my friends, is a hoodwink, and I'm glad we have at least one person in Congress who realizes this. Representative Thomas Massey recently tweeted, quote, "Real ID isn't needed and won't stop terrorists from hijacking planes. Most of the 9/11 hijackers held Saudi, UAE, Egyptian, or Lebanese passports." Also, Real ID doesn't have anything to do with voting in elections because you don't actually have to be a US citizen to get a Real ID. Okay, DACA, TPS, and foreign workers on temporary work visas all qualify for Real ID. So if Real ID doesn't help safety, it doesn't improve election integrity, it doesn't secure our country, what is the point of Real ID? Because just thinking out loud here, it sounds an awful lot like papers. Like governments past and present. Who can go where? Who are the good people? Who are the bad people? Who has spoken out against the government? Or more accurately today, who has spoken out against other governments? Back in 2005, when the law first passed, the ACLU said this, quote, "By centralizing our personal information into one giant data repository, the logical extension of a standardized driver's license, the Real ID Act presents many of the same privacy dilemmas as the Patriot Act. Both make it easier for the government to find out about you, your medical information, what you read, who you see, without evidence that you're up to no good." I'm going to pull up Massey's tweet again and read the last line. He says, quote, "Real ID is a national standard and database of IDs that is primarily a tool for control of Americans." That's certainly what I think. Let me know what your thoughts are.
I know I'm sure not thrilled about having to get one. I find the whole thing to be ridiculous, especially after he just pointed out how obviously pointless they are. If they're giving these to non-citizens and then telling people that they can use this to identify themselves to go vote, how is this going to ensure that only legal U.S. citizens are voting in our elections? It sounds to me like it's opening the door for fraud. I'm all for better security measures when it comes to stopping acts of terrorism, but at least show us the benefits of making us all go down to the DMV again for something that appears to have had very little thought put into it. Unless, of course, its main intent is not what they're telling us, which it's starting to appear that that may be the case. Hey, don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at berry-stepp.com.
As a rehab nurse, and one night a patient suddenly died. They prepared the woman's body for her family to come and visit one last time, and for the mortuary to come and take her away afterwards. The hall was mostly empty and there was nobody anywhere near her room. It was in the middle of the night, so no TVs would turn on, when all of a sudden, the now deceased woman's call light turns on out of nowhere. The rehab nurse heads down there to turn it off. A few moments later, they turn on again. This time the nurse answers it on the phone, so it turns off without having to go back down there. And that's when the speaker turns on and something creepy is heard. Listen closely. A disembodied voice can be heard talking, although it's hard to make out what is being said. Many people in the comments say they hear the words birthday and daughter died, and they believe this is the spirit of the patient still reliving a scene from its former life, not knowing that it has already passed on.
That honestly sounds to me like they're probably picking up a conversation that's happening on a television that's turned up too loud in one of the rooms next door. I'm not saying that that's what it is, but that's what it sounds like to me. That being said, the majority of my professional career as a maintenance man, the vast majority of it was spent in nursing homes. In fact, my first and last maintenance positions, which were my longest held maintenance positions respectively, were both in nursing home maintenance. And when I tell you I've seen some weird unexplainable stuff, I have seen some weird unexplainable stuff. I saw a lady one day walk past an open doorway to the room that I was working in. I called out to her, talked to her, everything. She walked on, and then I found out about half an hour later that she actually passed away the night before. I could do an entire episode on just the stuff that I witnessed while working in nursing homes.
Something otherworldly was lurking above Alabama in 1973. On the evening of October 17th, residents of the small town of Faulkville started reporting a UFO landing in a field. Local police chief Jeff Greenhaw grabbed his gear, including a Polaroid camera, and rushed to the scene to investigate. However, when he arrived, there was no craft, and thinking it was a false report, he headed back to his car, got in, and started driving. And that's when he saw it. This humanoid creature in the middle of the road wearing this metallic suit with an antenna on its head, and it appeared like it had no neck. At first, Greenhaw thought it was just someone pranking him, maybe the person that made the call to the police station. But something about this thing was just wrong. It began to move in these inhuman, robotic, jerky motions, and it was moving much faster than a human could. He then grabbed his Polaroid camera and quickly took these 4 pictures. He then tried driving towards it for a better shot, but then this thing just took off. He wound up chasing this thing up to speeds about 35 miles per hour, and even then, he couldn't catch up to it. He then hit a large bump at the road and crashed into a ditch and lost track of it altogether. Now, you might think this was just a hoax, but in the aftermath of this, Greenhaw was ridiculed viciously by locals and his fellow police officers alike for sharing his story. Sometime after revealing what happened, the engine in his car mysteriously blew up, likely due to sabotage. His wife then filed for divorce due to constant harassment by everybody. His house then burned down, likely due to arson, and the Faulkville Town Council pushed him out of being a police chief and demanded that he step down. And to top it all off, years later, someone broke into his home and stole the original Polaroid photos that he took of this metal man, along with his police service equipment. So, what do you think the Faulkville Metal Man was? A hoax or something else?
I'm not trying to be funny here, but I genuinely think that this might have been his attempt at trying to cover something up. Maybe he had been drinking or something, and that's why he crashed the cruiser, and he needed to come up with a good cover story. And being inebriated, the cover story that he came up with just wasn't the brightest idea. The main reason I'm thinking that it must be something of that nature is because the truth must be more embarrassing than maintaining the lie if he's willing to go through all of that to keep it going. Clearly, those photos were just some dude in a crudely made suit. I doubt those would have convinced somebody from back in his day whenever he took the photos. It sounds like the guy didn't have very many fans, and almost every lunatic has somebody in their corner. I'm betting this whole story was fabricated.
Justin Bieber is finding out just what happens to you when you try to walk away from the system that built you. Because right now, if you Google anything about Justin Bieber, it is all negative. They're saying his marriage is on the rocks, that he's in tens of millions of dollars of debt. The Hollywood Reporter is insinuating that he's suffering from a crisis in faith. But is any of that actually true? Because if we zoom out, we know that for years, Justin has been trying to get out of these horrible contracts that he signed with these record companies when he was a young kid, including trying to get out of a contract with his longtime manager, Scooter Braun. And over the past couple days, there have been rumors flying around online about a publicist named Stephanie Jones and how she's coordinating this attack against Justin Bieber, this smear campaign, on behalf of her client, Scooter Braun. And this morning, I got off the phone with a source very close to Justin's team, confirming that that rumor is true. Justin is trying to extricate himself from these contracts, and now Hollywood is fighting back. And Stephanie Jones, who represents a bunch of celebrities, including Tom Brady, let's just say if she's not your friend, she's your enemy. She's described as taking this no-holds-bar approach, super aggressive. She calls it championing the causes of our clients. Her PR team was at the heart of the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni drama, and now it seems that she's got her crosshairs on Justin Bieber. Now look, it's easy to write this off as celebrity drama. Rich people with rich people problems. But to me, this is really a universal story about what happens to people when they take on the system. Whether it's entertainment, finance, politics, the system will always work overtime to destroy them. And I'm choosing to talk about this now because every time a story like this gets exposed, the system loses a little bit of its power. And when enough of us are finally looking, that's when we have a chance to really take the system down.
All of this stuff going on with Justin Bieber just reminds me of everything we saw happen with Michael Jackson whenever he tried to take on Sony. They destroyed the name of the most famous man in the world. Now they're doing the same thing to him. I was wondering when this was coming down the pipeline though. With all the satanic stuff that the music industry is pushing now, and Justin Bieber keeps releasing worship songs on YouTube and talking about God, you know they don't like that stuff. I felt like he put a target on his head the moment he went public with his faith, specifically because of the industry that he's in. Those guys really don't like Jesus.
Since we're all here hating on Katy Perry, I figured I would talk about this thing that I learned the other day called the Perry Act, which is because of Katy Perry, and it's not good. This act was brought to lawmakers because of Katy Perry's repeated financial abuse against elders. It was proposed after Katy Perry's most recent legal battle regarding her home in California. So she tried to purchase this property from like an 85-year-old veteran in like Montecito something, California. He actually had just gone through back surgery, so he was on painkillers, and when he agreed to the sale, he was not in a right state of mind, right? And so a couple days later, he actually tries to back out of the sale, and Katy Perry sued him in a 4-year-long legal battle, which she actually ended up winning because her argument was that, well, he founded 1-800-Flowers, and therefore he could be in sound mind, even though he had just undergone major back surgery, had a cognitive disorder, and was on painkillers. So in 2024, Katy Perry evicted a 85-year-old veteran from his home in California because she wanted that home. And you want to know what? That wasn't even the first time that she did something like that. The first time that she did it to a group of nuns. I'm not joking. So these nuns did not want to sell the property to her. They actually wanted to go with another buyer. And Katy Perry sued the nuns. And literally in court, right before, this is so crazy, oh my god. In court, one of the nuns goes, "Katy Perry, please stop," and then drops dead in court. That was in 2018. So now we come to the Perry Act, which stands for Protecting Elder Realty for Retirement Years Act. And this act is supposed to establish a 72-hour cooling off period where basically if somebody in the party, in the sale, is over 75 years of age, then any party in that sale can back out within 72 hours free of penalties. All because Katy Perry decided to evict elderly nuns and an elderly veteran from their homes. So if that's the first time you're hearing about it, welcome to the club. I just found out about this like yesterday. Thanks for listening.
I knew about the nun situation, but this other story about this elderly veteran that she's taking advantage of, this is news to me. I hope the whole world finds out about this. She used to be a good singer who could actually write a decent song. I just didn't care for the lyrical content most of the time. It's amazing how she's gone from being one of the most famous female singers in the entire world to kissing dudes against their will on national television, ripping off the elderly, and lying to the public to try to fake a trip to space. That is some legacy she's going to leave behind.
Cabbage Patch Kids one is a very interesting one. You find all these old school postcards that have all these cabbages and you have little babies on top of them. And what's interesting is during that time, they're shipping babies around with USPS, which is really strange. You can pull it up. It says 1910 or 1912, whatever. They're shipping babies with USPS. So things are really weird with that. Now, the other thing too is people almost look like they're going to pick children during the Cabbage Patch thing. It's almost like they're advertising these children as if you can buy them and you can pick them up and sell them. And it's like a marketplace for children. So it gets really strange. And, you know, people who are wandering around at this time, it's almost like they're taking in these kids. And what was weird with me when I was getting into the whole Cabbage Patch thing was I was wondering, where are all these kids coming from? Now, this does follow the 1893 World's Fair. It follows right around that time. So it's almost like all these kids appear. Now, was there some sort of catastrophe? Was there, a town money panic or some sort of thing that happened and then people gave up their kids and decided to sell them? Then the other thing, too, is the more I would dive into cloning, the harder it would be to find anything of actual clones.
I don't think this has anything to do with clones. However, for a long time, I didn't think there was any way that there was any truth to any part of this. And now I'm starting to see that I may have been incorrect. I could be incorrect about the clone thing as well, I don't know. But I'm leaning more toward this having something to do with them taking these children from somewhere against their parents' will, and then using them to repopulate the country with new citizens who wouldn't understand or know about our true history. Maybe the parents of these babies were those who refused to comply with the new narrative. I don't have any evidence for that, but it sounds more plausible to me than cloning.
For those aware of how the secret societies behind this space fakery use numerology and symbolism to communicate, the numbers and symbols for this mission are clear to see. The mission patch, viewed upside down, reveals a clear Baphomet, the goat god of Freemasonry, with 3 heads on either side, giving 33, the 33 degrees of Scottish Rite Masonry. Then you have the mission number being NS31. And if you watch the time during the live takeoff, you will notice it happens at exactly 1:31 p.m., or 13:31 military time. Since 31 is 13 backwards, NS31, taking off at exactly 13:31, gives us 3 13s, 13 being the number of degrees in York Rite Freemasonry. Their blue suits and the Blue Origin Company are also a nod to the so-called Blue Degrees, or first 3 degrees of Freemasonry. The mission was named New Shepherd, as in herding a new flock of sheep, which is clearly what they are attempting to do with this all-female crew, trying to make a new generation of women all hyped up for these supposed space achievements. Unfortunately for Jeff Bezos, and thankfully for the rest of humanity, the masses are finally starting to see through these fake space shenanigans, and even mainstream media sources are pointing out obvious anomalies with the new footage. To begin with, pay close attention to this circumcised phallic rocket ship and how strange the video appears even at a casual glance. The rocket is very crisp compared to the background, appearing superimposed, while the fire beneath the rocket contrastingly looks very low definition, making a muddled video that looks like something straight out of AI or an Unreal Engine video game. The entire trip, from launch to landing, lasted only 11 minutes, supposedly sending the celebrities 350,000 feet high. Even mainstream sources have reported how the zero-G effect experienced for about 3 minutes of their journey is not the result of the women being in so-called microgravity, but rather happens the same way a parabolic zero-G airplane flight creates a free-floating atmosphere. As the plane or rocket approaches its peak altitude, during its peak, and for some time afterwards, this weightless effect is achieved because the passengers inside are essentially free-falling at the same speed as the craft while enclosed. Meanwhile, just like when Blue Origin did their same publicity stunt with Dude Perfect, the horizon is filmed with a fisheye lens out of an already slightly curved window, giving everyone at home the effect of seeing a convex horizon, which, with the rise of the Flat Earth movement, is likely one of the main reasons we keep seeing these media-hyped space publicity stunts in the first place. When the capsule finally lands, it hits with a very jarring impact, kicking up huge clouds of dust, which the announcer casually glosses over, claiming to be a, quote, soft landing. Rather than having ambulances and medical personnel close by, instead it's just Jeff Bezos and a film crew standing around waving at them through the windows. Note that these women are wearing slim, sleek suits with no helmets, and one of them, Gail King, is 70 years old. While waiting for the right moment to open the pressure-sealed hatch, one of the passengers then makes the huge blunder of opening the capsule's flimsy door all by themselves. Jeff Bezos and his female partner outside the capsule see this and immediately shut the door, telling the women to wait inside, and can be seen laughing and grinning ear to ear afterwards due to their flubbed exit. Once the embarrassment wears off, Jeff then uses his special metal tool supposedly needed to open the hatch, which limply opens inwards like an old screen door. Compare this to actual pressurized seals, which generally open outwards from the outside, not inwards from the inside, and require some serious strength to open. Once the women step out, each of them gives the most disingenuous, cringeworthy, girl power speeches, holding back fake tears, calling themselves astronauts, and acting like they have done something wonderful for feminism and women transformers in general. Katy Perry kisses the ground and repeats how she feels so connected to love now, while Amanda Wynn talks about how healing the trip apparently was for her.
Here's one thing I don't get. If Bezos started that company as an online bookstore in the spare room of his mom's house, or however the story goes, how did he know back then, as an average Joe, to add all this Freemason symbology and stuff into his company's logo? I'm not saying it isn't there, but was he a plant from the start? Was he already involved in Freemasonry? And I think the fisheye lens comments are kind of pointless. It doesn't really matter what kind of lens they're using. They're clearly not even up there. That pod they landed in looked like it had been driven there on the back of a truck. It did not look like it just flew through the atmosphere getting scorched. And they put the moon in the wrong place. I'm just saying it doesn't matter that the footage is curved if you know the footage is fake anyways.
You guys want to see something insane? So this is a hospital, Western State Hospital, and it used to be an insane asylum. And before that, it used to be a different insane asylum. So before Washington State was a state, it was a territory. And there must have been a lot of very insane people here, because they built an insane asylum, they say, established 1871, that can house more than 800 insane patients. 800 beds, guys. And then that building got torn down and this one was put up. And it's like, okay, this just seems like a lot of work for the insane. It became a hospital, that's what they say, 1934. And just very intricate little genie lamps and entwined snakes for the insane. It sucks because there's no construction photos of this building, which is too bad, because I'd love to ask them, why did you build it half underground? Right? Because like this is clearly the ground floor. Why are they, like, okay, if it's an insane asylum, that seems like a flight risk, right? You can just climb out the window, right? Like, look, this is like sandstone and granite. Like, this is intense. This is intense. And security guy here just kicked me out because you're not allowed to take photos of this place. And guys, here's just my question as I walk away from the insane asylum turned hospital. Do you guys know that 100,000 lobotomies were done on American citizens from 1900 to 1950? 500,000 people were locked up in insane asylums between 1900 and 1950. That's more than our homeless population now, adjusted for population. Isn't that suspicious? Because here's my thought. The building's magnificent, and inside they're doing lobotomies and electric shock therapy. Some barbaric practices. If you go to modern hospitals now, they have MRI machines, and the buildings look like, right? So you got space age technology in buildings, and then you have barbaric Dark Ages technology inside the most magnificent buildings. I'm only asking questions, but here's the question. Would it be possible that they lobotomized anybody who dissented from the narrative? Just a question, or locked them up in an insane asylum and shocked them till they were good boys and girls? Because you see, this is Fort Steilacoom. Here's some cannons. This is what I'd expect from the 1870s. Not this. I think these are feds coming to get mad at me. And guys, look at this. All of these cars are parked in the ground because they're doing construction right now, right? Like, what's going on here? Right? They don't even have a parking lot. They can't even throw up a parking lot, a temporary parking lot for these people. Dude, this guy out here is like running me off the road. He's so mad at me right now. Security guard. All right, there you go. Notice the dinky little stone wall that runs the perimeter. What a building, guys. Insane.
I'm just throwing ideas out there. But we all know how quick they were to institutionalize somebody back in the day. If you get more headaches in any given day than your husband feels like is necessary for him to have to put up with, you may be getting lobotomized. What if this explains where all these Cabbage Patch babies come from? What if they decided to try to change our history at some point, which we know had to have happened to a degree, and they had one part of the country who agreed with them and one part of the country who still wanted to keep preaching the truth? So they put all these problem people into asylums and ship their babies off to another city to be adopted by somebody else. This sounds really dark, but it's much more plausible than cloning. And maybe I'm off about the reasoning for putting so many people in an asylum. But I think there might be a connection here between all these Cabbage Patch babies and all these people that got locked up against their will. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back soon with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at berry-stepp.com. And don't forget to drop a photo of your merch over in the Discord to get your photo in a video. But guys and gals, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next one.